to Pastor Moffitt and the members of Calvary, and to all who have joined in on this in-person and virtual conference platform. I consider it a joy and a privilege to be a part of this occasion. And I am humbled that I was asked to share a word as it relates to this important celebration. I must say that each day brings about new challenges and changes, whether it be something individual or collective. Challenges inevitably will come. Changes in how we do what we do, and whether or not we need to keep doing what we are doing will always confront us. But how we handle the challenges and what changes we make within ourselves are more important than any challenge or change that we face. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, as long as we trust in a God who does not change and in a Christ who has shown us how to triumph in any challenge, we'll be all right. My assignment this evening is to share to some degree and hopefully to encourage even more something about our history and heritage as a race of people as we observe the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, trust me when I say that with all the information available in the midst of all that we are facing in present America, this really was a tough task. I could spend hours upon hours rehearsing all the things that Dr. King did and what he means to so many people. I could recite excerpts from his many speeches or speak of the many individuals who have been inspired by his life's work. As this weekend unfolds, and even today, many observations and events have taken place to remember the man and his dream. However, I want to expand the celebration some because I believe that Dr. King would be more inclined to see the bigger picture of where we are as a people rather than have accolades of praise, although they will be well-deserved, heaped upon himself. And so I ask tonight that you pray with me and ask the Holy Spirit to illuminate my words in a way that will glorify God and edify each of you tonight. Pastor Moffitt, somewhere years ago, I heard the statement, Black history is American history. And as I researched that, I came across several individuals and other organizations that have made reference to it as well. Now, whether it is an official documented statement or just one that is matter of fact, no one can doubt to some degree that indeed Black history is a vital part of the story of America. In August 1619, a ship carrying among its crew and cargo were more than 20 enslaved Africans who were subsequently sold to English colonists in the newfound land, which would become America. And as documented by the New York Times and the 1619 Project, no aspect of the country that was formed would not be untouched by the vestiges of slavery. Now, it's been 400 years since that historic event, and one must wonder what has been the one constant thread that has woven the lives, experiences, stories, hopes, dreams, disappointments, and even tragedies all together, and is still on the forefront of so many discussions year in and year out. Well, I will tell you what that thread is. It is the fact that the story of America and the story of Black America in particular is a story of mercy and grace. It's been 400 years since that historic event, and one must wonder, what has been that constant thread? Well, I tell you again, it is the fact that Black America has been blessed by God's mercy and his grace. It's a story of a people who, although they were uprooted from everyone and everything that was familiar to them, and was placed in a land not built with them in mind as equals, but as slaves. Yet they still thrived and survived only because of the mercy and the grace of God. It's a history of a people who endured beatings, lashes, whippings, and brutal treatment that was meant to break their wheels, but could not break their spirits because of the mercy and grace of God. It's about a people who were told that they were to obey their masters because that's what the Bible said. Yet somehow deep down inside, they knew that the God that their master had told them to believe in could not be the same God that taught them how to love their enemies, pray for them that despitefully use them. And only the mercy and grace of God could help them do that. You see, they knew that the true and living God was a God of love. He was a God of mercy, and he was a God of grace. They knew that he had to be a God of justice and righteousness. And although he would allow them to suffer hardships and mistreatment, he would never leave them nor forsake them. They believed that one day God would vindicate them and show them his kindness and goodness alongside his mercy and his grace. They believed that he would fight their battles for them if they would just hold their peace. And so they did. They held their peace and they waited on God to move on their behalf. But while it seemed like God was not moving, little did they realize that God was not only moving, but he was also molding. That's right. He was molding people like Harriet Tubman and preparing her to lead the Underground Railroad. He was molding people like Frederick Douglass, who would champion the cause of the abolition of slavery in the midst of a civil war. He was molding a sojourner truth whose faith and strength was unmatched by any man or woman at the time. He was molding Richard Allen, who realized that God was not limited to the white church, but was also the God of the people of color. And it led him to start the first AME church in America. He was molding Medgar Wiley Evans to head up the NAACP as field secretary in Mississippi. And yes, he was molding Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who had a dream that one day men would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Now, all these individuals and more like them would take their place and make their mark on the stage of American history because God, in his mercy and grace, knew that the history of this nation would not be complete without them. Well, since that famous speech by Dr. King in 1963, one must wonder what has happened because it seems as if the dream has become a nightmare. And with all due respect to those who work tirelessly and with great effort to keeping the dream alive, I am afraid that we are witnessing the decline of the very things that really made this nation great. They were the stability of the family and the sanctity of the church. With the decline of the two-parent family, and that being a father and a mother, we see more and more situations that were unheard of than ever before. Unless someone take offense and think that I am minimizing the contribution of the single-parent home, please don't misunderstand me. I recognize that there are single mothers and fathers who have done a tremendous job in maintaining a family dynamic under the most dire of circumstances. But overall, you will have to agree with me that when the traditional family began to be considered as a relic of the past, because society felt the need to embrace an alternative lifestyle where Johnny has two dads and Sally has two moms, then we immediately hit rock bottom and have continually submerged into the depths of depravity. And because the church has been handcuffed by politically correct jargon and the threat of litigation for speaking truth, many who have claimed to have been called by God have apparently submitted to this text and Twitter movement of the world and have allowed their messages to get crossed up rather than being lifters of the cross. Now, you may ask, well, Pastor, what has this to do with Dr. King in our history? Well, it has everything to do with it because the history of our people is inextricably linked with faith in God and the strength of the family. It was the family who prayed together that stayed together. It was the father that said, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. It was the mother who taught her children the Lord's Prayer, the 23rd Psalms, and the Golden Rule. And it was the children who understood that they were to honor their father and their mother. It was the church that called sin, sin, and didn't try to sugarcoat the truth. It was the church that was the bedrock of power that allowed movements for civil rights and protests against injustice to be planned, organized, and mobilized within her walls, while at the same time demonstrating how to love your enemies, how to pray for those that despitefully used you and persecuted you. Now, Dr. King knew this quite well, and on every occasion, he sought to instill the Christian ethic of love and forgiveness in all of his life's work. Therefore, we can't talk about one without acknowledging the other. It was the church that was the salt of the earth and the light of the world. And it was the church who sang as its theme song, "Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on as before." Yes, if we truly want to celebrate Dr. King, and if we want to celebrate history and continue his legacy, we must first return to our first love. Listen at something Dr. King said about that. He said, love is the greatest force in the universe. It is the heartbeat of the moral cosmos. And he who loves is a participant in the being of God. We must love the Lord our God with all our heart, all our mind, our soul, and our strength. And we must learn to love our neighbor as ourselves. We must demand that our young men put down their guns and pick up the Bible to change the trajectory of their lives. We must demand that our young ladies not succumb to the exploitation of the entertainment industry and give themselves over to the text, Twitter, and twerking craze just for celebrity status that won't last for long. We must demand that those who we've elected to serve in public office will do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly before God. And by all means, we must demand that the church be the church by just being the church. We must be that light that shines on a hill, testifying by our words and our deeds that Jesus is Lord and that he's the only way to salvation. We must go back and reclaim some of the songs that gave us hope and strength when it seemed like all was lost. Songs like, "Guide me, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrim through this barren land. I am weak, but thou art mighty. Hold me with thy powerful hand. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more." We must sing, "Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraw thyself from me, oh, whither shall I go? And then we must renew our commitment to service by singing a charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, an ever dying soul to save, and fitted for the sky, to serve this present age, my calling to fulfill. Oh, may it all my powers engage to do my master's will. Yes, my brothers and sisters, until we return the family back to its rightful place in society and the church to her rightful purpose in the world, we will not be able to achieve all that God will have for us to achieve for his glory. Oh yeah, we've made significant progress as a people in spite of the oppression, obstacles, and obstructions of justice that we face. And it was because of the mercy and grace of God. We have witnessed countless atrocities and tragedies being perpetrated against us. And if the truth be told, even by us. Yet I believe that there is still hope because I believe in the sovereignty of God. The great poet James Russell Lowell reminds us in his poem entitled This Present Crisis. And Lowell says, truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own. And since God is watching above his own, we can trust him to lead us and guide us into the day of true freedom. There was another individual, Theodore Parker, who was a Unitarian pastor and abolitionist. And he said these words concerning the abolishment of slavery. Parker said, I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eyes reach but little ways. He said, I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. He said, I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends toward justice. Well, my brothers and sisters, a century later, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the steps of the Alabama State Capitol after the march from Selma to Montgomery, he took a cue from Parker and recited these words in his speech entitled, Our God is Marching On. And most of us know it by the how long, not long speech. He said, I know you're asking today, how long will it take? Somebody's asking, how long will justice blind the visions of men, darken their understanding, and drive bright-eyed wisdom from her sacred throne? Somebody's asking, when will wounded justice, lying prostrate on the streets of Selma and Birmingham and communities all over the South, be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men? Somebody's asking, when will the radiant star of hope be plunged against the nocturnal bosom of this lonely night, plucked from the weary souls with chains of fear and the manacles of death? How long will justice be crucified and truth buried? I come to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment, however frustrating the hour, it will not be long, because truth crushed to the earth will rise again. How long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. How long? Not long, because you shall reap what you sow. How long? Not long, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. My brothers and sisters, the common thread that was linking Lowell and Parker and King was that they each believed in a sovereign God who ruled and reigned in truth and righteousness, and was full of grace and mercy. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. So sing a song full of the faith that the dark path has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on until victory is won. Stay the course, my brothers and sisters, and may God bless you and keep you.